Introduction to the new life of Silly Zhu in the courtyard. Silly Zhu, who has become a negative capitalist in his old age, was knocked out of his home by the white-eyed wolf stick and froze to death on a winter night in a bridge. He is full of resentment and should not even be accepted by the underworld. You leisurely return to that turning point in his life. After a lifetime of hard work, Silly Zhu didn't lick his dog and married Ran Qiuye to have a child. Later, he went out to sea for development and the king returned. Chapter 1. Men who are not accepted by the underworld. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, stick meme, you can't do this, you can't do this. Stick meme, you have to be honest in your life. You forgot that it was the job I arranged for you, the wife I paid for you to marry. Even the house you currently live in is also the ancestral home of my He family. Stick meme, you can't do this, you can't do this. On this big winter night, Silly Zhu was an old man in his 70s, with a face full of wind and frost and white hair all over his head, clutching the door frame and pleading with Stick G not to drive him out. But Bang Ji showed no mercy towards him and said harshly, Silly Zhu, don't bother and pester yourself. Since the policy changed, retirees like you basically have to pay for minor illnesses themselves, and 80% of major illnesses are reimbursed, not including those self-funded projects and self-funded drugs. Silly Zhu, you can tell yourself that since you were 70 years old, when did you stop taking medication? Which year did you have to stay in the hospital for 1 or 2 months? Can your annual retirement salary cover the self-funded part of your medical expenses? Besides, you also have to eat, smoke, and drink. Silly Zhu, Jia Jian, really can't afford to keep you as a medicine jar. You should go to Xiangjiang to find your own son. After speaking, Bang Ji forcefully lifted Silly Zhu's hand from the door frame and pushed him out. And the foolish pillar who was pushed out of the door quickly continued, Bang Ji, you can't say that. Yes, I do spend more now than I earn. But didn't all the money I earned in the past few decades be given to you? Including this 3-courtyard house. Silly Zhu, don't talk about this courtyard. When we were building a happy home, all these houses were under my mother's name. It has nothing to do with you, Silly Zhu. Stick meme, how could you say that? Yes, when we were building a happy home, we asked our neighbors to live in a house for their elderly care. They gave us the house, and we were responsible for taking care of them. But after they transferred the house to your mother's name, did your mother pay a penny for their food, drink, medical treatment, and funerals afterwards? Isn't that all my money? Get lost, silly pillar, you can't tell me about this, you can't tell me about this. Anyway, this 3-courtyard house is all owned by my mother, and I am my mother's only son. So this courtyard is mine, and it has nothing to do with you, silly pillar. Get lost, silly pillar, get lost. If we want to dig up old accounts, it must be Jia Jian's fault, so at this moment, Bang Jian is too lazy to grind teeth with Silly Zhu and directly pushes him out. But seeing that the oil and salt in Bang Ji didn't come in, today he was determined to drive him out, so Silly Zhu had to rush into the house again. Huairu, who had been sitting there without saying a word, shouted, Huairu, you don't care about Bang Ji like this. Silly pillar, it's not easy to stick with memes. You don't earn enough money every year, so don't make things difficult for your child. You can go out and find a way to survive on your own. Huairu, I'm already in my 70s and still sick. Where else can I find a way to survive? Huairu, don't go. Silly Zhu hopes that Huairu can come out and speak a fair word at this moment, so that Bongging won't do such a heinous and immoral thing. But now that he has become a foolish pillar with negative assets, how could Huairu still care about him? So seeing Silly Zhu roaring, Huairu decided not to sit here anymore. With a slap on her buttocks, she went back to the inner room. Her figure was so decisive that seeing Silly Zhu at this moment, her heart was filled with coldness. Huairu's clear attitude of supporting the stick meme and driving the silly pillar out, then the stick meme had no worries. Seeing that Silly Zhu was dead and refused to leave, he hit him directly. Later, he picked up a firewood stick and faced Silly Zhu with a storm. Poor Silly Pillar Hall, once the god of war in the courtyard, now the hero is getting old, and those who are hit by stick memes are shouting, "Wow, that's a tragedy." So, Silly Zhu was kicked out of his house by Bang Gung on a snowy day, far away, and threatened, "Silly Zhu, if you dare to come to my house again, be careful not to break your dog leg." Putting aside this harsh remark, Bataji walked away with a majestic aura, just like a victorious general. And the elderly fool Zhu, facing the figure of Bang Gung leaving, felt a hatred in his heart. "This little rabbit eats my food, drinks mine, and spends mine. I treat him like my own son, and I have given him all my life's hard work. But now he is treating me like this, is that still human?" Behind the back of the stick meme, Silly Pillar gritted his teeth, but he couldn't do anything about it. After all, his era has come to an end, and he is now a dying old man. Knowing that he would only be beaten again if he went back, Silly Zhu resigned and turned around, wanting to temporarily stay at his nephew's house. Halfway through, Silly Zhu remembered that Huairu had always strictly controlled his money, which was related to the funeral of his sister Rainwater. He married 2 nephews and had children, and Huairu saved as much money as he could. This has already made his 2 nephews and 2 nieces-in-law dissatisfied with his uncle. "I usually listen to Huairu and treat my sister's family so harshly and ungratefully. Now that I am in trouble, I run to their place to seek shelter. How could I have the face to enter?" Thinking of this, looking for Siheyuan www.zhaoshuiyuan.com, Silly Zhu had a sorrowful expression on his face and had given up the idea of seeking refuge with his nephew. In a different direction, Silly Pillar entered a bridge hole, hoping to take shelter from the piercing cold wind here. Curled up, the foolish pillar leaned against the wall of the bridge, unconsciously recalling his own life. When he was young, he had a house, skills, income, and stable job, so he wanted to find a beautiful wife. As a result, she became seductive and fell into the hands of Huairu, a beautiful widow who had been a lifelong helper for her old Jia family. However, in the end, she fell into a snowy day and ended up huddled in a bridge. On winter nights in the 4 or 9 cities, there is no heating indoors and people can't stand being covered in thick blankets, let alone outdoors. So in that cold bone marrow, Silly Zhu's body temperature gradually passed by, and his life gradually approached its end. Finally, when another gust of cold wind blew, Silly Zhu looked at his soul and gradually drifted out of his drive. Piao, the soul of Silly Zhu entered the underworld. However, just as Silly Zhu was about to enter the city gate, Niu Tu Ma Mian stood up and blocked the door, saying, "Zhu, the king of hell said that you have too much resentment on your body. If you are reincarnated like this, it will definitely bring disaster to the world. So you should go to the human world to wash away your resentment and reincarnate again." After speaking, Niu Toma faced Silly Zhu and exerted all his strength together, shooting him back like a bullet. Passing through time and space, passing through scenes, when Silly Zhu's soul stabilized again, he saw the familiar kitchen of the steel rolling mill cafeteria and the familiar colleagues. Just as Silly Zhu felt like he was dreaming, the famous big-mouthed broadcaster Lu Lan from the broadcasting room of the steel rolling mill gave him a heavy pat on the shoulder and joked at him, "Silly Zhu, what's wrong with you? Are you thinking about your sister Qin?" Chapter 2. The Importance of Propaganda Work. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. When Lu Lan made such a joke about Silly Pillar, the whole group of people in the cafeteria kitchen burst into laughter. Seeing so many people supporting her, Lu Lan became even more enthusiastic. She continued to charge Silly Zhu, "Hey Silly Zhu, did Huairu last night? Anyway, now in the kitchen, there are only a pair of single masters and disciples, Silly Pillar and Ma Hua. The others have already become fathers and mothers. So, with the support of everyone, Lu Lan simply started talking dirty jokes and jokingly talked about the sexual affairs between Silly Zhu and Qin Huairu. In any era, that kind of thing between men and women is a hot topic for people to joke about after dinner. Therefore, as soon as Lu Lan mentioned this, the group of people behind the cafeteria simply stopped their work and paid their attention to Lu Lan. That was really a traffic gain. The more her colleagues cheered, the more crazy Lu Lan became, and the more she spoke, the more energetic she became. In the end, as Ma Hua said, she blushed and ran out. Lu Lan, are you enough? A lesbian woman, with such filthy and obscene language, do you think you're embarrassing people? Seeing Ma Hua blushing and running away, Silly Zhu finally found a way to counterattack Lu Lan. Upon hearing what Silly Zhu said, Lu Lan still said with a playful expression, "Hey Silly Zhu, people say that women are like clothes, and they were fresh at the beginning. After a few times, they don't have much flavor anymore. Hey Silly Zhu, the neighbors say that since Qin Huairu and her man Jia Dongxiu died from work-related injuries, Qin Huairu has been sneaking into your house every day. Silly Zhu, Qin Huairu's man has been dead for over 3 years, right? Since you two have been better for over 3 years, why are you still so obsessed with her? Hey Silly Zhu, you can tell everyone, isn't Qin Huairu very powerful? Lu Lan, that woman dares to make any jokes. In this conservative 1960s, she could also be considered a oddball. However, Lu Lan is very talkative and dares to say anything. At this time, he is really useful to Silly Zhu. Many people speak louder than words, accumulating destruction and destroying bones. If more people speak, that lie will also turn into truth. So, the journey of revenge in this Life of Silly pillar, he planned to start by guiding public opinion and causing Qin Huairu to suffer a downfall. Having made up his mind, he turned to Lu Lan with a sorrowful expression and said, "Lu Lan, if I tell you that Qin Huairu and I have never had such a thing in the past 3 years, do you believe it? How could that be? Hey, let me tell you, Silly Zhu. Although we don't live in the same courtyard, we live in the same alley. The news about you and Qin Huairu has been circulating among the neighbors for a long time. It's said that you and Qin Huairu intend to live together, but Qin Huairu's mother-in-law is afraid that Qin Huairu will remarry, so she won't care about her anymore, so she keeps blocking her. Silly Zhu, is this the same thing? Is that bullshit? Lu Lan, you are also a smart person. Use your brain to think, how could I possibly want to marry her, Qin Huairu? Lying trough. Isn't it that the neighbors always say, stupid pillar, is just a licking dog spinning around Qin Huairu's crotch? Why is this foolish pillar unwilling to marry Qin Huairu? Having doubts leads to curiosity, especially for a middle-aged woman who loves gossip. So when Lu Lan heard that Silly Zhu clearly denied his intention to marry Qin Huairu, she quickly asked, Silly Zhu, after hearing your words, do you still not want to marry Qin Huairu? Seeing Lu Lan getting hooked, Silly Zhu quickly said, of course. Hey Lu Lan, let's live in an alley. You probably don't know about the situation of Qin Huairu's family, right? Qin Huairu has 3 children below her. Her eldest son is 12 years old this year, her 2 daughters are 9 and 5 years old, and there is also a mother-in-law who has just turned 50 this year. Lu Lan, do you think we need to raise Qin Huairu and her 3 children to adulthood? How much money, effort, and responsibility do we have to bear to support her mother-in-law in old age? Besides, I am the only child in the He family. I can't help but have my own children, right? Oh my goodness, if I marry Qin Huairu, she will be a burden of 4, and with my own children, how many people do we need in this family? Can I support them as a cook? Silly Zhu didn't talk to Lu Lan and the kitchen staff about any big principles, he just talked about the most practical life issue. And now the whole group of people in the kitchen are also people with families and mouths, who are suffocated by the pressure of life. Especially Lu Lan, for this reason she had to do 3 jobs for deputy factory director Li. Therefore, when Silly Zhu mentioned this very practical issue, the kitchen and everyone were deeply convinced. I think since Silly Zhu can consider these practical life issues, he shouldn't be so foolish as to want to marry Huairu. So after understanding these things, Lu Lan continued to ask, Silly Pillar, since you don't want to marry her Huairu, why have you given her everything for over 3 years? When Lu Lan asked this, it was because he was getting deeper and deeper into the trap. So Silly Zhu pretended to have a sorrowful expression and continued to complain, Hi, Lu Lan, my sister Lu, I don't really want to marry her, Huairu. I can't handle her. At the beginning, when she just died of a man, she came to me pitifully and borrowed money, saying that she would repay me when the compensation from his men's factory came down. I thought to myself at the time, everyone is a neighbor, not an outsider. That's right, so I borrowed her 200 yuan. Later on, the factory lost her family 500 yuan, but she came to me and told me that her mother-in-law said that the 500 yuan was her son's hard-earned money and could only be used on her son Bang Ji. Therefore, the 200 yuan she borrowed from me earlier cannot be returned to me. She said that the 200 yuan may have to wait for her to work in the factory and earn a salary before she can repay me. From now on, not to mention the 200 yuan I borrowed from her earlier, it's the money I earn and the lunchbox I bring home every now and then. She borrows it for various reasons. If I don't give it to her, she sits at my house crying and even kneels down for me. Lu Lan, what do you think I can do? Anyway, I can't handle her anymore, so I've let her succeed every time, and then I've become accustomed to it. Silly Zhu spoke very pitifully of himself, which made Lu Lan and the kitchen staff believe his words. After all, the impression that Silly Zhu has always given people is that he has a hot temper and cannot hide his thoughts. Who believes that Silly Zhu can act and sell pitiful costumes? So I believe that it was actually Huairu who had been fooling around and searching for the Siheyuan website www.zhaoshuiyuan.com instead of being fooled and wanting to marry Huairu. Lu Lan said with a puzzled expression, but, Silly Pillar, when the people from your courtyard come out to talk to us neighbors, that's not what they say. What can the people in our hospital say? What exactly is going on, and who really knows about it? Besides, our hospital supervisor, Zhonghai, an 8th-level fitter in a workshop, leans towards helping Huairu in the hospital and speaks for her everywhere. Isn't this causing misunderstandings among the neighbors? What, Silly Pillar? You said Master Zhonghai was helping Huairu. Hey, Lu Lan, are you silly to ask? Huairu had 3 mantu to be touched, 5 mantu to be kissed in the workshop, and the 8 Mao ones went to the small warehouse with others. Who doesn't know these things in our factory? Zhonghai was in the same workshop with Huairu, and could he not know about the troubles of Huairu? But Lu Lan, you have heard of Zhonghai, and someone told him about Huairu, didn't he? Silly Zhu revealed another fact, which immediately convinced the entire kitchen group. After all, Huairu has been working as a top shift in the factory for over 3 years. Who in the steel rolling mill doesn't know about her charm? Since it is widely known, how could he not know that Zhonghai and Huairu have been in the same workshop for over 3 years? Knowing that Huairu is just a bitch, but not only does she ignore it, but she also distorts black and white and maintains it everywhere. There must be a problem here. So after understanding this, Lu Lan opened her mouth in surprise and asked in horror at Silzu, Silzu, do you mean Huairu and Zhonghai? Who are they? Lu Lan, do you still think that my foolish pillar would want to marry her, Huairu? She is a well-known whore among 4 people. Which man would be so willing to sacrifice his life, forget his life, and shamelessly marry her? Chapter 3. Change starts without a lunchbox. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, Zhonghai and Huairu have that kind of relationship. This melon is too big. For a while, Lu Lan's mouth was wide open and could even fit an egg. And seeing that Lu Lan had already been intimidated by himself, Silly Zhu increased the dosage of the medicine and said, Lu Lan, we live in the same alley. When the elders and aunties in the alley chat together, sometimes we talk about Huairu's son who looks like Zhonghai. You haven't heard that before, have you? Lu Lan, think about it for yourself. Does Huairu's son, Bang Gung, look like Zhonghai? Their facial features, eyebrows, and eyes, as well as Huairu's son, Bang Gung, having curly hair. When Zhonghai used to grow long hair, was his hair curly or real? As a person of 2 generations, Silly Zhu knows too much about the imagination of these middle-aged women. So he deliberately provided clues to Lu Lan and the other kitchen ladies to develop their imagination. Sure enough, when these clues from Silly Zhu were thrown out, Lu Lan and a group of kitchen ladies immediately gathered together to chatter, each saying something with a nose and eyes. It seems as if a paternity test has already been conducted, and it is hard to prove that Bang Gung is the son of Zhonghai. Watching these old ladies packing the sky there, Silly Zhu smiled unkindly and thought to himself, with the ability of these old ladies to spread rumors, we can spread them 10 times, 10 times 100 times 100 times 100 times a million. I see how you, Zhonghai and Huairu, can explain clearly in the future. Thinking about Zhonghai and Huairu, the fate of being criticized by thousands of people in the future, Silly Zhu's heart is still beautiful there. Director Ma of the cafeteria, carrying a bag of ingredients, came in and the kitchen said to Silly Zhu, there will be leaders from brother units coming to our factory to visit and learn. The factory leaders have instructed us to arrange a reception dinner tonight. Please be careful. Hey, good director. Oh. Promised so readily and with such a good attitude, did this foolish pillar take the wrong medicine today? Previously, Silly Zhu relied on his good cooking skills and looked down on Director Ma who climbed up by sneaking around. He had always been indifferent to Director Ma, but today, why is his attitude so good? Director Ma doesn't understand, and even the rest of the cafeteria doesn't understand, but the foolish pillars of 2 generations understand that being a person should be aware of current affairs, especially when you don't have the strength to confront others. Because of this understanding, Silly Zhu decided to keep his kindness and self-esteem hidden in his heart and follow the local customs on his face for the rest of his life. Silly Zhu has a correct understanding, but others don't know. So Director Ma and the kitchen staff all stared at him dumbfounded now. Seeing Director Ma staring at him so foolishly, Silly Zhu quickly asked with a silly smile, Director, why are you looking at me like this? Do you have anything else to tell me? It's not silly, I said you took the wrong medicine today. How come I feel like I don't know you so well? Hi. Director, I know I used to be confused and a bit confused. But you have to allow me to make some progress, haven't you? Director, today in front of all the staff in our kitchen, I apologize to you. It used to be me who didn't understand, so please bear with me more, please bear with me more. After taking the medicine and admitting the mistake, Silly Zhu bowed to Director Ma. And seeing Silly Zhu humble like this, Director Ma was even more puzzled by Master Zhonghai. So Director Ma said with a puzzled expression, Silly Zhu, are you holding back something bad in your heart today? Silly Zhu, I can tell you, don't argue with me, be careful I'll take care of you. Okay, Director. Let's not talk anymore. What do you think of my future work performance? What do you think of my future work performance? Is this a complete picture? Silly Zhu had a sincere attitude and always wore a smile, but his past generous demeanor really left a deep impression on Director Ma. Therefore, in the eyes of Director Ma, the smile that Silly Zhu is smiling like a spring breeze now is that Silly Zhu is holding back something bad and trying to mess with himself. Seeing off the suspicious and restless Director Ma, Silly Zhu shouted to the kitchen group, everyone has heard me. We have a reception task tonight, so let's get busy now. Hey, Huairu's family has big fish and meat to eat again at night." As soon as Silly Zhu finished giving orders, Lu Lan came over to pick up the snake skin bag of ingredients that Director Ma had just brought over. When passing by Silly Zhu, she said ominously. Upon hearing Lu Lan's words, Silly Zhu also pulled his face and immediately replied, "Lu Lan, what did you say? You forgot all the things we talked about earlier so quickly." What's wrong, Silly Zhu? Even if you don't want to marry Huairu, wouldn't you bring back the leftovers from our cafeteria kitchen to give her Huairu? Silly Zhu always takes the leftovers from the cafeteria back and gives them to Huairu, making it impossible for Lu Lan to find them. This has already made Lu Lan feel dissatisfied. So Lu Lan now took advantage of the situation and challenged the foolish pillar. Upon hearing Lu Lan's words, Silly Zhu immediately turned to the kitchen and loudly said, colleagues, I'm here to apologize for everyone's mistake. I know that over the years, I have always been eating more and taking all the benefits that should belong to the big guys on my own. Colleagues, I'm sorry, it's my foolish Zhu who is not right. After saying this, Silly Zhu bowed to everyone. After straightening up again, Silly Zhu continued, colleagues, to express my apologies to the big guy and my determination to make corrections. I now announce that from today on, all the leftovers in our kitchen will belong to you. I will not take them from Siheyuan www.zhaoshuiyuan.com in the future. Ah, silly pillar, is what you're saying true? You can't lie to anyone. Upon hearing about the leftover food from the kitchen, Silly Zhu didn't even want it. Lu Lan immediately excitedly asked Silly Zhu to confirm whether his words were taken seriously. When asked by Lu Lan, Silly Zhu immediately said decisively, Lu Lan, let me tell you this. If I lie to you and my comrades today, then I'm a son of a bitch. Okay, thank you, Master He. Master He, I don't even bring my lunch box anymore. Are you really going to sever ties with Huairu? Upon hearing the confirmation from Silly Zhu and Lu Lan, he really didn't want the leftovers from the cafeteria anymore. The group of people in the kitchen immediately became happy. After being happy, Lu Lan with a big mouth pulled Silly Zhu with a curious baby-like expression and asked, Hey Silly Zhu, you don't even bring your lunchbox. Are you really going to cut ties with Huairu? Hi. Lu Lan, why do you still have that kind of thought now? I dare say that all the things I just said to you were in vain. Lu Lan, do you think that Huairu is a widow with 3 children below and a mother-in-law above, which is a burden of life? And Huairu has so many unclear relationships with men, her reputation. And Huairu is already 30.1 years old this year, 30.2 years old after the new year. How many years can a woman still be beautiful at this age? Based on the above 3 points, Lu Lan, do you think I would want to marry Huairu? The analysis is insightful and thorough. Based on the above 3 points mentioned by Silly Zhu, any man who has not yet developed a mind will not jump on the hot Kong of Huairu. So when Silly Zhu said these 3 points, Lu Lan and the kitchen staff in the cafeteria now completely believed them. In fact, it has always been Huairu's pursuit of Silly Zhu's wealth, not Silly Zhu's desire to marry Huairu. Chapter 4. Playing with the Jia family's wife-in-law. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. After finishing tonight's reception in the cafeteria, Silly Zhu kept his word and handed over all the good things he had intercepted to Lu Lan and the others for distribution. And he himself carried a hand behind his back and gracefully walked out of the cafeteria kitchen. Today, the leaders of our sister units came to visit and learn from the steel rolling mill. It is not surprising that the leaders of the steel rolling mill will definitely take their leaders to various workshops for a walk. In this way, Huairu will definitely know that the cafeteria in the factory will arrange a reception dinner tonight. After all, the hospitality of our flower growers is to prepare a table of good wine and dishes for guests once they arrive, so that they can eat and drink well. Thinking of this, he thought that Huairu must be waiting for his lunch box now. Silly Zhu smiled and changed direction to stroll on the street, looking for his long-lost memory. As Silly Zhu thought, today in the workshop, as soon as she saw a foreign factory supervisor visiting and studying at the steel rolling mill, Huairu began to swallow her saliva, thinking about what good dishes Silly Zhu would bring her tonight. Upon returning home from work, Huairu said to the old godmother Jia Zhang, "Mom, today a guide from his brother's unit came to our factory to visit and study, and their canteen must arrange a reception meal. So tonight we have to steam a cage of mantou, and we don't need to prepare the dishes." Hey, upon hearing his daughter-in-law say that there was a banquet in the cafeteria tonight, the old lady Jia Zhang's old face immediately smiled like a chrysanthemum. My heart also began to wonder if there would be braised pork belly in the lunch box that Silly Zhu brought back later. The Jia's mother-in-law and daughter-in-law were steaming mantou there. When they wanted to be silly, little white-eyed wolf Bang Terrier also brought their sisters back from outside. As soon as he entered the door, little white-eyed wolf Stick shouted, "Mom, can you cook the rice? What did Silly Zhu bring to our house today? Do you have any meat?" "Oh, hello, how many times has Mom told you? You can't call him Silly Zhu, you have to call him Uncle He. Why can't you remember that? Come on, what kind of child are you? Everyone calls him stupid guy, why can't my family meme call him stupid guy? Seeing the Huairu training stick meme, Jia Zhang immediately felt heartbroken and came out to protect her offspring. After scolding Huairu, Jia Zhang smiled and said to Bang Ji, "Come, Bang Ji, come to Grandma. Grandma told you, there is a banquet in the cafeteria of Silly Zhu tonight, and we must have meat to eat tonight." "Ah. Really, Grandma, that would be great. By the way, Grandma, has that silly pillar come back yet?" "Not really. Maybe there's a lot of food today, but that silly guy is still busy in the cafeteria. Come on, good grandson, you go do your homework first. When that silly guy comes back, we'll have dinner." Oh, upon hearing that there was meat to eat tonight, Bang Ji was also happy. He quickly took his two sisters to the Kong in the inner room to do his homework. Time passed in a hurry, just over an hour passed, and the outside sky was completely dark. The Lao Jia family was eager to see through, but still couldn't wait for the silly pillar they had been longing for, as well as the lunch boxes that silly pillars had. At this point, other people have already had their meals, even the pots and pans have been washed clean. But the food from Lao Jia's family hasn't been served yet. After shouting, "Hungry," for an unknown number of times, Jia Zhang looked anxious and said to Huairu, "What's going on? It's not like Silly Zhu doesn't come back so late to entertain us. Is something wrong? Maybe. Mom, you stay at home and watch the child. I'll go out and see what exactly happened." "Hey, go ahead. The stomach was growling with hunger, but the foolish pillar had not returned yet, and Huairu felt a little unhappy at this moment. Thinking that if Silly Zhu didn't quickly bring back his lunch box after finishing the reception today and instead chatted with others on the way, Huairu insisted on letting that dog try the family tradition today. Thinking so, Huairu left the courtyard. Then she followed the usual route that Silly Zhu used to take, the way to and from the steel rolling mill, to block him. Along the way, Huairu endured the howling cold wind and looked around, but she didn't even see the hair of a foolish pillar. Unconsciously, Huairu arrived at the entrance of the steel rolling mill. Thinking whether Silly Pillar would still be in the cafeteria, Huairu took a step towards the steel rolling mill. The gatekeeper of the steel rolling mill knew Huairu, a pretty widow, so he asked through the window, "Master Qin, what's wrong with you? It's already off work, why are you still here?" I left something in the workshop. I'll go back and pick it up now." In fact, Huairu can directly inquire with the gatekeeper whether the cafeteria staff have finished work. But Huairu has a guilty conscience and wants to set up a memorial archway when she is a bitch. So she didn't tell the guard that she was looking for the silly pillar, lied and fooled the guard. After fooling the gatekeeper, Huairu walked straight towards the factory. About 10 minutes later, Huairu arrived at the cafeteria where Silly Zhu was working. After arriving here, Huairu looked up and saw that the entire cafeteria was pitch black, without even a bright light. How could anyone still be working inside? Although at this moment, I already felt that silly pillar was probably no longer in the cafeteria. But Huairu, who didn't give up, still went around to the back kitchen of the cafeteria to make a final confirmation. Arriving at the kitchen in the cafeteria, when she saw the big lock on the door, Huairu finally confirmed that Silly Zhu had already finished work. As soon as she was certain of this, Huairu couldn't help but bite her silver teeth tightly and stomped her foot down with a fierce curse, saying, "All right, you idiot. If you don't bring your lunchbox over after work and dare to run out into the wild, see how I'll deal with you later." After being ruthless, Huairu turned around and walked away, thinking about how to punish Silly Zhu later, whether he should kneel down and admit his mistake, and whether to only give him 5 yuan in pocket money next month. Huairu then returned home. As soon as she entered the door of the Jia family, the devout woman Jia Zhang saw Huairu coming back empty-handed and looking for the Siheyuan website www.zhaoshuiyuan.com. She quickly came out and asked, "What's wrong, Huairu? That dog is still busy working in the cafeteria." "Where, Mom?" "I just went to their cafeteria. The lights were all turned off and there was no one inside. That silly pillar left work early." After saying these words, Huairu sat down on the bench next to her own dining table. It's like pulling a bellows, breathing heavily there. But as soon as she heard that Silly Zhu had finished work early, she didn't quickly bring back the lunchbox, causing her old Jia family to be hungry until now. The Jia Zhang family was also angry and started cursing Silly Zhu with her hands inserted into her waist. Just as the Jia family's mother.in.law and daughter.in.law were scolding Silly Zhu, thinking about how to punish him when he returned. Silly Zhu had enough nostalgia outside, so he shrunk down and returned to the courtyard. As soon as Silly Zhu entered his own courtyard, the Jia family's mother.in.law and daughter.in.law, who had been lying on their windows looking out, immediately rushed out of the house in anger. "Silly Zhu, stop here." "What do you mean, Silly Zhu?" "Damn it, Silly Zhu, you have a bad conscience, causing our family to starve until now. Damn it, why don't you give me an explanation for the old Jia family today? I can't spare you, old lady." As soon as she saw the foolish pillar, the devout woman Jia Zhang took the lead in making a fuss. And then, the devout old lady Jia Zhang and the white lotus Huairu angrily pointed at the silly pillar and scolded, "I said silly pillar, how old are you? How come you still don't have a proper appearance? You don't know that my family is waiting for your lunchbox when you don't come back quickly after work? Stupid idiot, I'm telling you, why don't you give us an explanation today or compensate us with money? I'll fight with you, old lady." Just like this, Jia's mother.in.law and daughter.in.law, you say something to me, and holding a relay race to criticize Silly Zhu doesn't give him a chance to retaliate. Chapter 5. Recovery of Debts and Grain Costs, Part 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. The Jia family's mother.in.law and daughter.in.law were shouting loudly in the courtyard. Soon, not only those who lived in the middle courtyard, but also the neighbors who lived in the front and backyards were startled and ran over. As soon as the 3 masters and neighbors in the courtyard arrived, Jia Zhang, who felt reasonable, became even more enthusiastic. That was a tearful and snotty accusation against Silly Zhu for not being a good person and not bringing the lunchbox back quickly after work, causing her to suffer from hunger among the 5 members of the old Jia family. After listening to Jia Zhang's accusation, the virtuous heavenly lord Zhonghai immediately scolded the foolish pillar. You are such a big person, why are you still so out of shape? If you don't come back quickly after work, take the lunchbox to Huairu's house. What are you going out for? You see you've angered your Aunt Jia, you should compensate her as soon as possible, saying you won't do it in the future. Oh. Master Yi, you are the steward of a quadrangle courtyard. That's how you handled the case. Then you are really Bao Qingtian. Master Bao Qingtian, I asked you, his Jia family's surname is Jia. What is my surname? Why should I give them the lunchbox? What do I owe them? Also, Master Bao Qingtian, I and his Jia family are just neighbors. Where do I go after work, and why do they manage it? This. The words spoken by Silly Zhu can be described as earth-shattering. Since the death of Jia Dongxiu, a man from Huairu, this Silly Zhu has been licking Huairu every day. In this way, for a long time, not only the Jia family, but also the neighbors of this courtyard have long regarded him as a silly pillar of the Jia family's dog. But now that Silly Zhu said this, everyone has also realized that Silly Zhu and the Lao Jia family are from both families. With this consensus, the things that Jia Zhang just accused Silly Zhu of, why not give her lunchbox to the Jia family after work? Isn't this suddenly becoming unreasonable? So the relationship between the silly pillar and the old Jia family was identified as two separate families. As soon as this fact was clarified, the neighbors immediately began to think 180 degrees and unanimously accused the Jia family. And at this moment, Zhonghai, who had just scolded Silly Zhu, also realized. Yeah, Silly Zhu and the Jia family are from the same family. Why does the Jia family ask for lunchboxes from Silly Zhu? Understanding this, Zhonghai felt a bit awkward, but as a moral deity, he always had reason. So Zhonghai scolded Silly Zhu again and said, Zhu, what nonsense are you talking about? It's not easy for the orphans and widows of the Jia family. Can you help them out? Helping. Grandpa, just because I didn't bring a lunchbox for their house today, how did the Jia family's mother.in.law and daughter.in.law scold me in the courtyard just now? Grandpa, didn't you hear me? You call this helping. This. Under the pressure of the silly pillar, Zhonghai couldn't answer. After all, with the attitude of the Jia family's mother.in.law and daughter.in.law just now, why are they receiving help? They are clearly collecting debts, okay. Zhonghai was at a loss, his words were exhausted, and he couldn't speak anymore. At this moment, Huairu, the white lotus flower, immediately came out to save the scene and said, I'm sorry, Zhu. I thought there would be a banquet in the factory today, so you would definitely bring delicious food to the children. So I asked the children to wait for you to come and eat again, which has caused them to starve until now. Woo-woo. Talking about children and wanting to rely on crying, I feel sorry for me and have reason. Huairu's behavior has been deceiving Silly Zhu for a lifetime in his past life. If Silly Zhu sees Huairu like this again in this life, he really wants to go up and give her two big mouths. Suppressing the raging anger in his heart, Silly Zhu said to Huairu, don't talk to your children about things. Besides, your three children are surnamed Jia, and my surname is He. They have nothing to do with me. Huairu, come and tell me that your three children lack oil and water, and ask me to bring back the meat and fish from the cafeteria to help your three children recover. But Huairu, have you ever thought about it? The leftover meat and fish in the cafeteria belong to all the kitchen staff according to the rules, not to me, Zhu. Because I can't stand your constant entanglement, I cry in front of me every day. In the past 3 years, I have shamelessly brought back all the meat and fish in the cafeteria to your home. Huairu, your family eats the lunch boxes I bring back every day, which is a peace of mind. But do you know how much I have been scolded for it? Not to mention the people in our kitchen, there is no one who doesn't scold me behind my back now. It's our courtyard house. I have given the lunch boxes to your family every time, but never to them. Who among them has no resentment towards this matter? I cursed at both the factory and the courtyard, bringing lunch boxes to your house, but in exchange, your mother.in.law and daughter.in.law thought I belonged to your family. Once I didn't bring them to you, your mother.in.law and daughter.in.law blocked me in the courtyard and scolded me like this. Alright Huairu, since both of you have done this today, I will tell you Huairu now that from now on, I will never enter your Jia's door again with Hiyuju's lunchbox. The grievances of 2 lifetimes, these last few words, silly pillar, are shouting at Qin Huairu. Seeing Silly Zhu talking about her Jia family like this, Jia Zhang, who didn't know what to do, came out and angrily scolded Silly Zhu, saying, Silly Zhu, you bastard, don't say you're so kind. You treat my Jia family well, that's for a purpose. We don't know which neighborhood in our courtyard. Your son is plotting against my daughter.in.law Qin Huairu. Silly Zhu, let me tell you, you've lost that heart. Qin Huairu is a member of my Jia family, and death is the death of my Jia family. He will never enter your door. In a fit of anger, Jia Zhang said such harsh words, which could be considered as a divine assist to draw a clear line between Silly Zhu and the Jia family. So as soon as Jia Zhang's words fell, Silly Zhu immediately said to the 3 masters and a group of neighbors in the courtyard, 3 masters, all the neighbors, did you all understand what Jia Zhang just said? Alright, since Jia Zhang has already talked about this today, then in the future, our He family and her Jia family will go back and forth by bridge and road. Don't come back. After saying these words to the 3 masters and the neighbors, Silly Zhu turned his head to the ferocious Jia Zhang family at Siheyuan www.zhaoshuiyuan.com and said, Jia Pazi, since you are so ambitious, then you can repay my He family's grain and non-staple food books, as well as the money your family has borrowed from me over the years. Repay the grain, staple food, and money. Lying trough. How could I forget about this mess? This silly pillar is my long-term meal ticket to the old Jia family. How could I fall out with him? When Silly Zhu asked the Jia family to pay back their grain and sideline supplies, as well as their money, Jia Zhang and Qin Huairu immediately froze. After all, they have always regarded Silly Zhu as a dog of her Jia family, thinking that they can do whatever they want. They never imagined that one day Silly Zhu would also stand up and want to be a person. And just as the Jia family's mother.in.law and daughter.in.law were being held by the silly pillar, the moral ruler Zhonghai came out to save the scene and said, Pillar. You cafeteria employees have the benefit of eating the cafeteria for free every day. Why do you need the food and sideline books? As for the money, you don't need it now. When you need it, let Huairu repay you. Lying trough. Is the moral heavenly sovereign truly the moral heavenly sovereign? What he said made Silly Zhu angry and happy. So Silly Zhu sneered at Zhonghai and said, Grandpa, I don't need any grain, staple food, or money now. Should I give all of this to the Jia family for free? If you want to say that, then what a great master. Your 8th grade worker earns over 90 yuan a month, and your family only has you and my aunt to spend money on. So you can still have 1,000 or 800 yuan left at a young age. So you don't need this money now. How about a master like this? You repay the money Qin Huairu owes me, and then let her owe you. What do you think? How is it going? Not much. As soon as Silly Zhu spoke these words, Zhonghai's face immediately turned blue with anger, glaring at Silly Zhu with a posture of wanting to eat people. Chapter 6. Recovery of Debts and Grain Costs, Central. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. Seeing Silly Zhu and Zhonghai biting their dogs there, I had long planned to seize the throne and become a master of the courtyard in my own bangs. At this moment, he also came out in pain and said, yes, Lao Yi, you are the one who is wealthy in our courtyard. You are the only one who has high consciousness. Since Lao Yi thinks the Jia family needs help, you can help them now. Yeah, yes, Lao Yi. You always call on big guys in the courtyard to help each other, but now things are up to you. It's not appropriate for you not to help. As soon as the second master of the courtyard in Lu Haizhong finished speaking, Yan Bugue, the third master of the courtyard, immediately came up to add firewood. After Lu Hai and Yan Bugue finished speaking, the neighbors who had long been dissatisfied with Zhonghai's leaning towards helping the old Jia family immediately followed closely, shouting to let Zhonghai, the master of the courtyard, set an example for the entire neighborhood. Being forced to do this, Zhonghai is going to be cowardly at this moment. From now on, he will have no face in the courtyard. So Zhonghai gritted his teeth and stomped his feet, stumbling his neck and saying, "Okay, since everyone has said so, I'll help her repay the money that Huairu's family owes to Zhu first." After saying this to the neighbors, Zhonghai said to Silly Zhu again, "Zhu, come on, how much does Huairu owe you in total? How much money does Qin Huairu owe me in total? Can you please let me take care of this? My monthly salary is 375 yuan, plus the extra income one earned from doing red and white dishes for others on a daily basis. On average, I earn 50 yuan a month, so I should still have some income, right?" Speaking of which, Silly Zhu stopped. After Zhonghai and a group of neighbors had no objection to his monthly income of 50 yuan, Silly Zhu continued, "I have about 50 yuan in income per month, and my monthly expenses are well known to everyone. I don't spend money on meals in the cafeteria on weekdays, that is, smoking or drinking alcohol. A dozen or so yuan per month is enough. Not to mention a dozen or so yuan, then let's call it 20. I earn 50 yuan per month and spend 20 yuan. I think everyone knows where the remaining 30 yuan went. Jia Dongshu died from a work-related injury in May 2 years ago, and it has been 3.5 years now, which is 42 months. Qin Huairu borrows 30 yuan from me every month, which is 126 yuan for 42 months. Plus, when Jia Dongshu first died, Qin Huairu borrowed 200 yuan from me, which is 146 yuan. Oh. Qin Huairu scraped 1460 pieces of land from the foolish pillar in 3.5 years. And this doesn't even count the monthly rations of grain, oil, and sidelines, as well as the lunch boxes that Silly Zhu brings to Qin Huairu's house every day. After this calculation, why is Qin Huairu crying about poverty? The land she scraped from Silly Pillar is enough to feed her family. As soon as the numbers were announced, the neighbors were in an uproar, envious, jealous, and resentful of Qin Huairu, a skilled land-scraping expert. And just as Qin Huairu was being looked at by the neighbors with no room to show her face, an old lady suddenly stood up and said, "Neighbors, you've heard what Zhu said just now. Everyone knows that my old man Yi has a high salary, and I'm not in the mood to have children, so my family has a surplus today. It's also appropriate to help the neighbors. But these people also have to talk about whether they should help or not, just like borrowing money. If the neighbor's family is really in a tight situation, then we should borrow some money from them. But if someone's family is clearly wealthy and still comes to borrow money from us, then we have to lend her back. Isn't that foolish?" After saying these words to the neighbors, a middle-aged woman said to the Jia family's mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, Jia's sister-in-law and Huairu, "According to Zhu just now, your family has borrowed a total of 1,460 yuan from him in the past 3.5 years. With the 500 yuan compensation given by the factory when Dong Su died, that's about 2,000 yuan, plus Huairu's monthly salary of 27.5 yuan, it's over 300 yuan in a year, and over 1,000 yuan in 3.5 years. Jia's sister-in-law and Huairu, not counting your family's original bottom line, it's just Dong Su's compensation. The money you borrowed from Silly Zhu, plus Huairu's own salary of over 3 years, then there's over 3,000 yuan, right? Alright, now tell the neighbors how your family spent that 3.5 years. Wow. Aunt, this account is calculated fiercely. After all, with the current purchasing power of money, a combination of 2 elderly women, 2 young girls, and a half-year-old boy like the Jia family can afford to spend 20 yuan per month, which is enough to ensure basic living. Moreover, the Jia family also has the monthly ration of grain, oil, and sideline food for Silly Zhu, as well as the lunch boxes that Silly Zhu brings back from the cafeteria every day. So based on this calculation, if the Jia family can spend 300 yuan a year, then it's sky high. That is to say, the Jia family has spent a maximum of 1,000 yuan in 3.5 years, and their mother-in-law and daughter-in-law still have at least 2,000 yuan in their hands, which can fully afford the 146th yuan of the silly pillar, so there is no need to borrow money from anyone. So when Auntie calculated this account, the neighbors immediately believed that Zhonghai should not lend money to the Jia family, and that the money should be repaid by the Jia family themselves. Neighbors criticized the Jia family for not repaying their debts with every word they say. Blaming the Jia family one after another, even though they were so wealthy, they cried poverty every day and took advantage of their neighbors. The neighbors became more and more excited as they spoke, and the words also became more and more unpleasant. This finally angered the devout old lady Jia Zhang. She came out and angrily scolded the neighbors, saying, "What's wrong with my Jia family having money? That money is what Silly Zhu is willing to give himself, not what our mother-in-law and daughter-in-law went to grab. Also, I am old and don't need money to support my elderly. My grandson doesn't need money to marry his wife and have a son in the future. Silly Zhu is a dead and penniless household, why does he need so much money? Oh. Jia Zhang, this is a divine assist again." Her words not only acknowledged that her old Jia family is indeed wealthy, but they just don't want to repay it. He even scolded the homeless for asking for money, which made the neighbors laugh and look at Zhonghai. Zhonghai's face was so embarrassed that he couldn't stay here anymore. As soon as Jia Zhang's words fell, Zhonghai angrily said, "Sister-in-law, since you have this attitude, I can't stop the lawsuit between your family and Silly Zhu. You can handle it yourself." After finishing this sentence, Zhonghai turned his head and left with a strong breath. And when Zhonghai, a quadrangle master, shamelessly left the scene, Lu Haizhong, the second master of the quadrangle courtyard, proudly came out to uphold justice. Using an official tone in the bangs to criticize the Jia family's behavior of being a scoundrel is a harsh criticism. But Jia Zhang was not easy to provoke either. When Lu Haizhong dared to say that about her old Jia family, she immediately waved her 9-in white bone claw and greeted Lu Haizhong's face. Jia Zhang was furious and took action directly, and then the courtyard became lively. Seeing that Jia Zhang dared to scratch Lu Haizhong, the second aunt immediately went up, followed by Lu Guangtian and Lu Guangfu, the 2 foolish sons of Lu Haizhong, as well as Qin Huairu and Bang Jian from the Jia family. The Lao Lu and Lao Jia families were in a fight, and the situation on the scene was completely out of control. Zhonghai, who had just returned home, had no choice but to come out and take charge of the overall situation. After instructing the people in the courtyard to separate the Lu and Jia families, Zhonghai did not mention the fighting between these 2 families. He only asked the Jia family's mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, Silly Zhu, whether they would pay back the money today or not. The truth was just revealed by Jia Zhang, but in order not to repay the money, the Jia family's mother-in-law and daughter-in-law are still stubbornly biting and claiming that their family has no money. Seeing the attitude of the Jia family's mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, Silly Zhu sneered at the 3 masters and the neighbors, saying, "3 masters, all the neighbors, you have seen it too. Today, it's not that I Silly Zhu insisted on doing something completely, but that I was forced to do it by her Jia family's mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. Alright, then let's not say anything. Let's hand this matter over to the police station for handling." After saying these words, Silly Zhu lifted his leg and walked out of the courtyard. As soon as Jia Zhang saw that Silly Zhu was about to report to the government, he immediately sat down on the ground, clapping his thighs and howling, summoning old Jia and little Jia to come up and take Silly Zhu away. Jia Zhang summoned her soul, so Qin Huairu naturally pretended to be pitiful and deceived her feelings. When she went to Siheyuan www.zhaoshuiyuan.com, Qin Huairu grabbed Silly Zhu's arm and said pitifully, "Zhu, are you trying to force sister to death? Qin Huairu, even though you have money, you still refuse to repay your debts. Now you're saying that my debt is mainly forcing you to die. Alright, Qin Huairu, you go die now. I want to see if the government will cut you off. I forced you to die. Pillar, how could you do this, sister's family? Alright, stop acting Qin Huairu. I've been watching your play for over 3 years and I'm tired of it. Just give me a hearty word now, you pay back the money or not, that's all." As soon as Qin Huairu saw that she was about to start pretending to be weak and acting in a pitiful drama, Silly Zhu quickly interrupted her. Seeing that all the usual tactics against Silly Zhu had failed, Qin Huairu had no choice but to beg Silly Zhu to give her some time. She went to discuss with her mother-in-law Jia Zhang. Qin Huairu helped Jia Zhang back to the Jia family, but Jia Zhang gave Qin Huairu a severe beating and angrily scolded her for being useless. After enduring the fight and waiting for Jia Zhang to lose her strength, Qin Huairu whispered with a fierce expression on her face, "Today, Silly Zhu's energy is on the rise. Either you return the money to Silly Zhu first, and when Silly Zhu's anger subsides, I will find a way to get it back. Alternatively, our mother-in-law and daughter-in-law can enter the station together today and have the police station come to our house to search." The meaning of Qin Huairu's words is very clear. At this point in the current situation, the Jia family either voluntarily repays the money or has the police station come to search for the money and return it to the foolish pillar. Both vertically and horizontally, Jia Zhang had to pay, and now she could only accept her fate. After asking Qin Huairu to repeatedly promise her that she would definitely get the money back from Silly Zhu in the future, Jia Zhang also had a runny nose and tears in her eyes, angrily cursing Silly Zhu and going back to the inner room to get the money. Chapter 7. Recovery of Debts and Grain Costs, Part 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. Not long after, Jia Zhang took out 2 passbooks from the inner room and handed them to Qin Huairu, whispering, "There are a total of 1,152 yuan in these 2 passbooks. When you go out, tell Silly Zhu that this is all we have in our house. There is only a difference of about 300 yuan between 1152 yuan and 1,460 yuan. Qin Huairu thought about pretending to be pitiful with Silly Zhu later. This 300 yuan appearance fee should be there, right? So Qin Huairu casually took the 2 passbooks from Jia Zhang, adjusted her mood, and went out. Leaving the house and approaching Silly Zhu, Qin Huairu looked pitiful and tearful as she handed 2 passbooks to Silly Zhu. Silly Zhu took 2 passbooks and added the numbers on them. He pulled his face and said, "Qin Huairu, are these numbers just right? These 2 passbooks only have over 1100, and you owe me 1460. Pillar, this is all I have at my sister's house. The remaining 300 plus, can I repay you in the future?" As she spoke, Qin Huairu's expression became even more pitiful, and her small hand even climbed onto Silly Zhu's arm. Seeing Qin Huairu still treating himself like a fool, Silly Zhu shook Qin Huairu's hand and angrily rebuked, "Qin Huairu, over the past 3 years, I've been putting my heart and soul into your family, but what did I get? Today, because I didn't bring you a lunch box, your mother-in-law and daughter-in-law blocked me in the yard and scolded me, as if I owe you all. Qin Huairu, I can see it clearly now. In the past 3 years, I have become accustomed to you all, thinking that you can ride on my head and defecate and pee. Since your mother-in-law and daughter-in-law are accustomed to treating others' kindness as blessings, Qin Huairu, I tell you that from now on, I will not be any more polite to your old Jia family. It's not even possible to lose a penny of this money today. In addition, I need to take out my grain and staple food reserves as soon as possible. Qin Huairu really didn't expect it. After licking her licking dog for over 3 years, she now turns her face around with such determination. So when Silly Zhu's words fell, Qin Huairu didn't answer and just kept crying. Watching a woman who had played with herself for a lifetime in her previous life, and when her son kicked her out in a snowy day, she said, "It's not easy to be a child, silly pillar. You should go somewhere else and find a way to survive." Now that he has been punished so miserably by himself, Silly Zhu has a feeling in his heart, which is joy. After calming down, facing Qin Huairu's pitiful demeanor, Silly Zhu continued to strike hard and said, "Qin Huairu, I'll count 3 times. If you don't return the money, grain, and staple food books that belong to me, then I'll go to the police station and have your mother-in-law and daughter-in-law both go to jail. Silly pillar, you're killing 1,000 swords. You're trying to force my Jia family to death. Oh, hey, Lao Jia, Dong Su, why did you leave so early? There's no man in my Jia family who can hold a household, so you're being bullied. I thought they were still a little over 1,000 fools, and with my daughter-in-law pretending to be pitiful, that stupid fool would just forget about it. I never expected that Silly Zhu would do such a great job this time." So Jia Zhang, who was eavesdropping behind the Jia family's door, couldn't hide it anymore. He rushed out and started splashing water, wanting to mix it up. But now carrying a foolish pillar who had been stingy for decades in his previous life, how could he still eat the same trick as the old lady of the Jia family? So Jia Zhang sat on the ground and began to splash, and Silly Zhu immediately turned around and walked outside the courtyard. As soon as she saw that Silly Zhu was about to report to the government, Qin Huairu immediately grabbed Silly Zhu and begged him bitterly, "Pillar, sister's family really only has these things left. Please have mercy on this orphaned and widowed mother of sister's family. Stupid pillar, that's enough. Have you had enough trouble today? Huairu has already paid you back over 1,000, isn't that enough? And your family's grain and sideline food. As a cook, you eat in the cafeteria for free every day. Why are you doing that? Can't you help Huairu's family?" Qin Huairu sold out miserably, and Zhonghai, the moral deity, immediately went up again, reprimanding the foolish pillar with a parental style. Faced with Zhonghai's moral kidnapping, Silly Zhu sneered and said, "Grandpa, I still say that. Your income and family background are much richer than mine. Even if you want to help the Qin Huairu family, why should you be the first? Why should I?" After speaking, Silly Zhu didn't wait for Zhonghai to reply, so he quickly walked away from Qin Huairu. And seeing that Silly Zhu's strength was getting stronger and stronger now, Qin Huairu, who was afraid of going to jail, didn't dare to hold a lucky mentality anymore. She shouted hysterically at Silly Zhu, "I'll pay you back, can't I pay you back? Silly Zhu, please remember that you treated me like this today, don't think I'll talk to you again in the future." "Humph, Qin Huairu, do you really think I care about you? Qin Huairu, today I will make a vow in front of all the neighbors in the courtyard, and from today on, I, Zhu, will take the initiative to talk to you again. Qin Huairu, my vow is over, and I hope you remember that what you said just now in front of all the neighbors in the courtyard will not provoke me again from today on. You, silly pillar, you can do it, you wait." Qin Huairu still considers herself a treasure and a silly pillar as her licking dog, unable to let go of her. But she didn't know that the foolish pillar now had only hatred towards her Qin Huairu, an unforgettable hatred. So, Qin Huairu cried and helped Jia Zhang up from the ground. She went back to the house and took out the money that should have been given to the foolish pillar, as well as the grain and non-staple food books of the foolish pillar's family, and returned them to the foolish pillar. After receiving the money, Silly Zhu still didn't forget to step on the Jia family and Zhonghai. He waved the money in his hand and protested to Zhonghai, "Grandpa, what's up? The Jia family isn't as pitiful as you said, right?" Yes, the widows of the Jia family were going to die and live just now. They said they didn't have money, so what are they taking out now? Yes, the Jia family, these unscrupulous widows, are really skilled at acting. It's a pity that they don't go to the book garden www.zhaoshuiyuan.com and become movie stars. Hey three masters, the Jia family is so wealthy. What should we say now about the money we used to donate to her family? With the acting skills that Silly Zhu hinted at, the neighbors immediately began to condemn Jia's mother.in.law and daughter.in.law. And as he spoke, he exposed the past donation to the Jia family. The Jia family is clearly wealthy, so it's not something that cannot be exposed. Over the past 3 years, led by Zhonghai, the steward of the Courtyard house, the Courtyard house has held 1 or 2 annual donations for the Jia family. It's too infuriating to ask the poor to help the rich. So the neighbors are now asking the 3 stewards to explain this matter to the people in the courtyard. Seeing the public angry, Lu Haizhong and Yan Bugui quickly cleared their responsibility and said that the donation was led by Zhonghai, an old man. They were just playing soy sauce, and this matter had nothing to do with them. Yan Bugui and Lu Haizhong flashed, and that old man Zhonghai became the target of public criticism. And everyone in the courtyard knows that Zhonghai has always been leaning towards helping the Jia family and is their support. So after flashing through the bangs in Yan Bugui, the neighbors pointed their fingers at Zhonghai. And there are also neighbors threatening to report this as fraud to the police station and the street. Under such high pressure, in order not to bring this matter to the attention of officials, Zhonghai cleverly chose to lure him with profit. He is responsible for the fact that Zhonghai's work was not meticulous enough in this matter. Therefore, while asking the Jia family to refund the donations from their neighbors, Zhonghai is willing to compensate one more, according to the amount of each person's donations, and compensate another portion to everyone. Lying trough. Grandpa is so grand, he pays 1 for 1. So at this moment, the neighbors all regretted that the love they had given to the Jia family was too little. Chapter 8. Donations make Jia's wife and wife hate dogs again. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. After receiving the benefits, Zhonghai announced the refund plan, and the neighbors became excited. They all voluntarily went home to get change. Yan Bugui, who had been responsible for paperwork in the courtyard, quickly went home to collect the ledger. After the neighbors were all in their respective positions, the 3 gentlemen held a small meeting first. Then the 3rd master Yan Bugui stood up and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, over the years, our hospital has donated 5 times to the Jia family. Later, I will add up the amount of these 5 donations from each family, and then I will call one of you, and the heads of each family will come up to collect the money. Alright, without further ado, the first silly pillar, your money is best calculated. Except for the first time after Jia Dongshu's funeral, when you donated 30 yuan, you always donated 10 yuan, a total of 70 yuan. Refunds and compensates, a total of 140 yuan. Come up and collect the money." Oh. Silly Zhu has recorded another 140 yuan this time, making a net profit of 70 yuan. It's about 2 months of salary for the silly pillar, and as soon as this number is reported, the neighbors become jealous. Yan Jicheng, the boss of the Yan Bugui family, immediately spoke up and said, "Mad, this dog is stupid. I used to say that this dog licks widows, and his own pockets are cleaner than his face. He is the dumbest in the whole courtyard. I never expected that now, he has made a lot of money. Mad, you're really lucky. Yeah, silly pillar, you've made a lot of money this time. You'll have to treat me later." Strange, just now the Jia family returned 146 yuan to Silly Zhu, and now Silly Zhu has earned another 146 yuan. Isn't that only 1.6 yuan? Strange, the dog has become a wealthy man. With Yan Jiqing leading the way, the neighbors began to lament that the once foolish and cheap dog thing has suddenly become a wealthy man, becoming one of the few wealthy households in the courtyard. Amidst the sighs and curses of the neighbors, Silly Zhu grinned and went up to collect the money. When handing the money to Silly Zhu, Zhonghai looked like I was your father and scolded him, Silly Zhu, with so much money all at once, you can't spend it recklessly. How about letting your aunt save it for you? No, Grandpa. Don't bother you too. I can manage this money on my own. How about the pillar? Are you still worried about your mother? My aunt is fair and just, as everyone in the neighborhood knows. But my aunt has a soft ear and will listen to you in everything. And I don't trust your character, Grandpa. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Zhonghai wants to manage Silly Zhu's money in the name of her husband. But Silly Zhu didn't give it for free. He publicly mocked Zhonghai's character, which made the neighbors laugh out loud and made Zhonghai look embarrassed. After mocking Zhonghai, Silly Zhu thought that in this year, it's not good to let people know that he's too rich, especially when a strong wind will blow in a few months, so Silly Zhu took the money and said to the neighbors, "Neighbors, I grew up in this courtyard since I was young, and I can be said to have a lot of affection for our courtyard. Our courtyard was renovated once before it was distributed to everyone during the liberation. 15 years have passed in the blink of an eye. Our courtyard's main gate has also decayed, and the paint on the doors, pillars, and corridors has fallen off. The stone slabs on the ground have also shattered a lot. Walking on them on rainy days may cause mud and water to splash all over. Watching our courtyard's daily decline, I feel heartbroken. So here I propose that, taking advantage of not being busy before the new year, we should repair our yard and each family should repair their own houses. At least the outside of each house should be painted with a new layer of paint. And the common parts of the yard, such as the doors, corridors, and floors, should be repaired at my own expense. Line trough. Stupid and atmospheric. As soon as Silly Zhu finished speaking, the neighbors immediately applauded warmly and shouted loudly, "Okay." But seeing Silly Zhu showing off, I couldn't understand why Silly Zhu suddenly had a falling out with his Qin sister tonight. Su Damao, who had been holding back from causing trouble, couldn't accept it anymore. So when the applause from the neighbors came to an end, Su Damao stood up and shouted loudly at the foolish pillar, Why? This courtyard is the courtyard of our 27 households, and the 3 stewards are in charge. Why are you foolish pillar building a courtyard?" After finishing his attack on the foolish pillar, Su Damao turned his head and said to the 3 steward masters, "3 masters, the foolish pillar has a heart that can be punished. Our courtyard is under the leadership of the 3 of you, and he wants to personally pay for the repair of this courtyard. Isn't he hitting your 3 faces? 3 masters, the foolish pillar is trying to bribe people to seize power. You 3 must be vigilant." As soon as Su Damao finished speaking, the 3 gentlemen glanced at each other and understood each other's meaning. Indeed, this quadrangle is owned by the 3 of them. If the courtyard is to be repaired by Silly Zhu alone, where should the faces of the 3 parents be placed? After reaching a consensus in their eyes, Zhonghai stood up and loudly said, "The opinion on the pillar is very good. It has been 15 years, and our courtyard should indeed be repaired. In this way, each household can pay for their own houses to be repaired. As for the public part of the courtyard, my family will donate 300 yuan, and the remaining part will be voluntarily donated according to their own abilities." Ah, is this just fair? Why should he be foolishly repairing everyone's yard? After listening to Zhonghai's final decision, Su Damao believed that he had once again been defeated, and that foolish Zhu's ambition as a wolf was a great victory. So Su Damao, after arrogantly mocking the foolish pillar, walked up to the square table where the 3 gentlemen were sitting, and slapped the one he had just received, along with his original change, onto the table. He proudly shouted, "I'll donate 50.2 yuan. Like an old man, I also donated 300 yuan. As soon as Su Damao reported his donation amount, the foolish pillar immediately reported his own donation amount, as if intentionally trying to slap Su Damao in the face. 52 and 300, this difference is too big. How could Su Damao afford to lose face? As soon as Silly Zhu finished speaking, Su Damao chuckled to his wife Lu Xiaoa, "Easy eye, come home and take the money. We'll also donate 300. Su Damao can't even be inferior to Silly Zhu. Virtue. Seeing Su Damao carrying the silly pillar again, Lu Xiaoa couldn't help but scold Su Damao. However, Lu Xiaoa is not a stingy person, and she also wants to renovate this courtyard to make her living environment better. So after blaming Su Damao, Lu Xiaoa got up and went home to get the money. Zhonghai, Su Damao, and Silly Zhu all paid 300 yuan, so Lu Haizhong was in pain. After all, his bangs have always aspired to be the master of this courtyard house. After all, he is a level 7 calciner in his bangs, earning over 80 yuan a month. So he was thrown onto the fire, and in his bangs that he didn't want to lose face, he gritted his teeth and stomped his feet, and said boldly, "My family also donated 300. Lying trough." The boldness of Lu Haizhong was highly praised and won applause from his neighbors. At this moment, the third master Yan Bugui became tragic. Although Yan Bugui is a primary school Chinese teacher, his monthly salary is only 32 yuan. Moreover, his family is still burdened with a heavy burden, his spouse has no job, and his youngest son Yan Jiquang and daughter Yan Jiti are still studying, both of which require his support from Yan Bugui. But after all, he is one of the 3 steward masters in this courtyard. The other 2 steward masters all donated 300 yuan. He can't donate 3 yuan, only 1% of the other 2 steward masters, right? So after thinking about this matter in his mind, Yan Bugui gritted his teeth and stood up loudly, saying, "My family's situation is well known to the neighbors. My family cannot compare with the first and second masters, and I can only do it within my means. Then I will donate my monthly salary, 30.2 yuan. Okay, Sandiyi, grand. Okay, the situation of Yan Bugui's family is well known to the neighbors. In the past 2 years, his eldest son Yan Jicheng and his second son Yan Jifang have successively joined the workforce, reducing the burden on his family. In the past, his family had 3 young boys and 1 daughter, along with Yan Bugui and his own 2 children. The family of 6 only relied on Yan Bugui's salary as an elementary school teacher to make a living, and the level of difficulty was imaginable. It is precisely because the neighbors know the hardships of life that they greatly admire Yan Bugui, who can grit his teeth and support the whole family with his own strength, and has the responsibility of a man. So even though Yan Bugui has many annoying little flaws, just because of his cultural level and his sense of responsibility as a man, the neighbors still chose him as one of the masters in charge of the courtyard house. Therefore, even though Yan Bugui has only donated 32 yuan, which is only 1/10 of Zhonghai and Lu Haizhong, he has received even more enthusiastic applause than Zhonghai and Lu Haizhong. After the 3 masters finished donating, each family in the courtyard also went up and donated money one after another. I just received a refund 1 for 1, and not only did the 2 gentlemen, Silly Zhu, and Su Damao all donate 300, but even the recognized stingiest 3 gentlemen in the courtyard, Yan Laokai, donated 30.2. So other neighbors donated less, and they really don't have the face to report numbers. So every household agreed to donate at least 10 yuan. Seeing every household actively donating, and at least donating 10 yuan, the old devout woman Jia Zhang gritted her teeth and said to Huairu beside her, "These damn people, let them donate to our family, only 1 or 2 yuan at a time, and we have to go back. Now that we are donating to the yard repair, only 1 family should donate at least 10 yuan. These damn people will not die easily. Alright, Mom, don't say anything, be careful not to be heard. By the way, Mom, everyone in the hospital has donated, so it's not good if we don't donate. How about we donate 10 yuan too? What to donate? With this 10 yuan to go to a restaurant, doesn't the food taste good? Let's go back. Seeing that each family in the courtyard donated at least 10 yuan, Huairu felt that it was not good for her family not to donate, so she also planned to donate 10 yuan. But the devout lady Zhang, that belongs to the sugar rooster. Not only does it not pluck a hair, but it also thinks about sticking 1 or 2 hairs on others every day. For her, if she doesn't pick up money when she goes out, it's considered lost. How could she be willing to donate 10 yuan? Not even 10 cents. So, fearing that Huairu might have a momentary impulse, she went up and donated 10 yuan. The devout woman Zhang even pulled Huairu back home. As they watched the departing figure of the Jia family's mother.in.law and daughter.in.law, the neighbors looked down upon them. Zhonghai directly covered his face, lamenting why the Jia family's mother.in.law and daughter.in.law were so ignorant, feeling remorseful about how I found such a pair of pig friends. Chapter 9. Huairu of Zhonghai Education. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, a big event has come to fruition. This year, everyone can celebrate the new year in a brand new courtyard, and the neighbors are all very happy. They went home happily. Silly Zhu is also very happy now. After this incident just now, the Jia family's mother.in.law and daughter.in.law will be completely ruined from now on. It is only natural for Silly Zhu to think about how to deal with them in the future. And that Zhonghai, after tonight's release, his golden body of the moral heavenly sovereign has completely turned into a mud tire. Wait for Lu Lan and the old ladies in the cafeteria to spread the speculation that the stick meme is the son of Zhonghai and Huairu. Further contact Zhonghai for his complete reversal of the black and white side of Huairu, as well as the fact that the stick stem looks like Zhonghai. I believe the neighbors will believe that the stick meme is a wild breed created by Zhonghai and Huairu. If that's the case, Zhang, this devout old lady, is the only child of a widow who died, and her grandson is still a wild seed from another family. Isn't Zhang crazy? Thinking about the excitement of the Jia family once the stick meme is recognized by the masses as a wild seed of Huairu and Zhonghai. And a few months later, when the strong wind blew, the fate of people like Zhonghai and Huairu, whose reputation was completely tarnished, made Silly Zhu laugh happily. Returning to the familiar house, I thought about giving up this house to Bang Gung to get married and living in the old lady's house in the previous life. Later, he handed over the old lady's house to Xiao Dang to invite his son.in.law. He only lived in one ear room, but was still kicked out by Bang Ji. Silly Zhu gritted his teeth and swore that he would never let the Jia family take advantage of him again in this lifetime. Feeling angry in his heart, Silly Zhu used tongs to clamp a coal ball, went to the neighbor's house to exchange a red coal ball, lit the stove at home, and then washed and slept. And just as Silly Zhu was smiling and falling asleep sweetly, everyone in the courtyard was not calm at the moment, talking about tonight's events. The onlookers are all analyzing why Silly Zhu suddenly had a falling out with the Jia family tonight, and how Silly Zhu's toughness this time can persist for a few days under the beauty of Huairu. Huairu's mother.in.law and daughter.in.law returned to the house, and after they had all 3 children to sleep, they sat on the Kong and whispered about tonight's event. Zhang first greeted the ancestors of Silly Zhu for 18 generations, and then she said with a worried expression, "Huairu, you used to be ruthless in asking for money and interfering with the blind date of that dog. After that dog was discovered, he also got angry a few times and chased you a few times. He said some harsh words to you not to bother him again in the future. But he never asked us to pay back the money. He never asked us to pay back his food and non-staple food. Huairu, I think it's true that this time, it's dog stuff. Huairu, you need to use dim sum for this matter, otherwise our family will really need it in the future. Every day, Wodu will be cabbage and potatoes. After all, Jia Zhang has 50 years of life experience and is also a woman. So today, the decisive decision of Silly Zhu was evident to Jia and Zhang. Silly Zhu really wants to draw a clear line with her Jia family and never help her Jia family again. After listening to Jia Zhang's words, recalling the fierce treatment that Silly Pillar had given her earlier, Huairu now also felt a deep sense of crisis. With a sigh, Huairu said, "Mom, since I joined the steel rolling mill as the head of the team, all the rumors and gossip about me have never stopped, and not just one person has been gossiping with Silly Zhu. But in the past, Silly Zhu didn't believe me and would scold or even beat those who were criticizing me. But over time, with so many people talking about me, Silly Zhu must have some faith now. Plus, looking at the end of the Chinese New Year, Silly Zhu is already 30 years old. At his age, everyone else is a child and already in school, but he is still single. I'm afraid he's also anxious about this matter. Moreover, I've ruined his many blind dates, and now he probably understands that if he doesn't cut ties with me, he won't be able to marry a wife in his life except for me." At this point, Huairu lowered her head helplessly and cursed inwardly, "Silly Pillar, why do you want to be smart? Isn't it good to be foolish and cheap like before?" Just as Huairu was sighing and wondering why a licking dog should be smart, Jia Zhangshi asked anxiously again, "Huairu, that bastard's mind is not confused anymore. So what should we do next?" "Mom, don't worry. If it's a dog, it can't stop eating shit. Huairu is still young and beautiful now. And I've never let Silly Zhu succeed in these years, so I don't believe he doesn't want to taste it." "What does Huairu taste like?" "Mom, these days I won't bother with that Silly Zhu, I just pretend to be pitiful in front of him every day. I don't believe he can resist it and won't come over to talk to me. And as long as he still greets my body and doesn't want me, I have 100 ways to turn him back to the same silly and cheap person he used to be." "Well, Huairu, you can have your own ideas. So, that's it for today. You still have to work tomorrow, go to bed quickly." "Mom, you go to bed first. I still have to go to an old man's house. Today, an old man has been implicated by our family and lost such a big person in front of the neighbors. I believe he is also very angry now. I have to go there and sell things badly, shed a few tears, and make amends to an old man. He won't help us anymore because he hates us. Okay, you go early and come back early." After discussing with the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, Jia Zhang, this dead fat pig, crawled into the bed to sleep. Huairu adjusted her facial expression and went to Zhonghai's house with a sad expression on her face. When Huairu arrived at Zhonghai's house, Zhonghai and his wife were still awake, talking about tonight's events, mostly complaints from a middle-aged woman. Upon hearing Huairu calling outside, Annie became angry and refused to open the door. In a fit of anger, she turned around and returned to the inner room. The old lady left in a fit of anger, so Zhonghai had to go and open the door on her own. As soon as he opened the door and let Huairu in, Zhonghai didn't say hello and sat back in his seat angrily. Seeing that Zhonghai was so angry, Huairu turned around and locked the door. Then she came over to sell a pitiful disguise, crying and apologizing to Zhonghai. For the vast majority of men, a woman's tears are fatal, especially for a very beautiful woman's tears. So under the attack of Huairu's tears, Zhonghai's heart quickly softened. Facing Huairu with tearful eyes and pear blossoms, Zhonghai calmly said, "All right Huairu, this is the end of the matter. What's the use of crying? Learn from it. Huairu, you and your mother-in-law were really wrong this time. How could you just block him in the yard and curse him just because Silly Zhu didn't bring you a lunch box today? Huairu, you have always been a smart woman with a general understanding. Why don't you even understand the basic principle that women should save face for men in front of outsiders?" Thinking about the foolishness of Jia's mother-in-law and daughter-in-law tonight, Zhonghai was also angry, so he couldn't help but start blaming Huairu. When Huairu heard Zhonghai say this, she quickly explained, "Grandpa, today the factory supervisor came to visit our workshop with the supervisor from another factory. I was thinking about the cafeteria of the Silly Pillars. There will definitely be a reception meal today, and the Silly Pillars will definitely bring back a lot of meat and vegetables tonight. Find Siheyuan www.zhaoshuiyuan.com. So I didn't cook anything tonight, only steamed buns, and asked the whole family to wait for Silly Zhu to come back before eating. But who would have thought that Silly Zhu would go out to play after work today, but my whole family was so hungry that Silly Zhu came back and hadn't eaten yet. At that time, I was also in a hurry, so when my temper got angry, I didn't care so much. Grandpa, I was wrong, I really didn't mean to." Woo woo woo. After defending herself, Huairu lay on the table and cried. To be honest, Huairu really regrets it now. If you had known that licking dogs still have backbone, Huairu would not have been too hard on them no matter what. She would have relied on wisdom to fool licking dogs. Watching Huairu cry like that, Zhonghai first glanced at the inner room and saw that the door curtain was solid. After Auntie didn't peek, his hand also patted Huairu's back. While patting Huairu's back, Zhonghai said, "Huairu, remember today's lesson. Huairu, remember that you can be petty when there are only you and Zhu. As long as there are outsiders present, you must save Zhu face. Just like today's incident, because Zhu didn't bring a lunch box for your family, your mother-in-law and daughter-in-law blocked the pillar in front of the neighbors and cursed in the courtyard. Don't you think about it, why did Zhu bring a lunch box for your family? Why is Zhu your Huairu's dog, or your Huairu's servant? Over the years, Zhu has been pouring his heart and lungs into you, Huairu. But in exchange, Huairu has become a servant to you. Huairu, you say to yourself, Huairu doesn't even treat him like a human. If Zhu doesn't turn against you today and still dotes on you, how will he have the face to go out and see people in the future? Thinking about the suicidal behavior of Jia's mother-in-law and daughter-in-law today, Zhonghai became more and more angry. If it weren't for that, what would it be? He won't even open this door to Huairu today. Chapter 10. The Empress Dowager of the Canteen's Ambition. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. After seeing off the crying Huairu, Zhonghai returned to the inner room. Zhonghai, Zhu is a sincere child. Would it be appropriate for you to calculate on him like this, said the aunt with a guilty expression on her face, what's appropriate or not? What can we do about it? We don't have any children ourselves, and when we're like an old lady, we can't even cook a meal, and there's no one around us, what should we do? Upon hearing his wife implying that his actions were not kind, Zhonghai calmly defended himself. Upon hearing Zhonghai's words, Auntie continued, Zhonghai, Huairu is a woman with ulterior motives. You see, over the years, Zhu has been treating her with all her heart and lungs, but how has she treated Zhu? Zhu didn't bring her a lunchbox once, so she joined her mother-in-law in blocking the pillar in the yard and cursing. Isn't this a white-eyed wolf? And just now you saw her, even though her family is wealthy, they just want to default on their debts. They usually do the same in the yard. Although they are very wealthy, they sell pitiful clothes every day and ask the neighbors to help her. They even asked you to organize a donation event for her family, deceiving the neighbors' money. Hey Zhonghai, do you remember how Huairu always cried and said how difficult her family was at the donation conference, begging the neighbors to help her? Even though her family was so wealthy, Huairu still did it like this. Thinking about how poor Huairu used to cry at the donation conference, I feel nauseous now. Zhonghai, asking Zhu to marry such a bad woman is so heartless. Thinking about Huairu's scheming, those shameless things, and he really despises them now, and she really can't bear to let her watch the silly pillar grow up from a young age and marry such a bad woman. What Auntie said is all facts. If there was a choice, Zhonghai would definitely not want to answer women like Huairu. But a mistake can turn into eternal hatred, and looking back, it has been 100 years. So Zhonghai had no choice but to calm down and persuade an old lady. Huairu is indeed a bad woman, and since her man Jia Dongshu died, this woman has really lost her face for money. She has that kind of relationship with several male employees in the workshop, and her reputation is very bad in the factory. Today in the courtyard, she had such big eyes again. It can be said that no one in our neighborhood treats her as a person anymore. And I believe it won't be long before the influence spreads. In this entire alley, our family area of more than 10 factories, there will probably be no more people treating her as a person. Old lady, to be honest, I'm also annoyed by Huairu's woman now. I don't want her to ruin her reputation. But isn't there anything we can do about it? If Zhu marries another woman and has his own child, how can he still have the energy to care for us? Besides, even if Zhu is willing, her wife is willing to let Zhu take care of us, and if he is not related to them, will he never die? Old lady. Huairu is indeed a bad woman, but she is quick-witted. You see, she has to work during the day, but she can still take care of her 3 children and 1 mother-in-law, which is quite considerate. Moreover, Huairu is greedy for money. Not to mention her previous savings, even after I retire, I still have a monthly retirement pension of 40.50. For the sake of money, Huairu is definitely willing to take care of us, let alone she has a short hand in our hands and has fallen out with us, not as good as her. Grandma, think about it, if Zhu can become a family with Huairu, then Zhu will cook vegetables for us every day, and when we get sick, he will take us to the hospital with Bang Gung. Huairu will help us wash and clean every day. If that's the case, then we can live our old age in peace. What Zhonghai said is very reasonable. Although Huairu is a bad woman, she is hardworking and has outstanding abilities. And it is precisely because Huairu is bad and greedy, that she is better able to handle it. After understanding this, and he didn't have much to say, she just felt that it was too sorry for Silly Zhu. The next morning, Silly Zhu got up and freshened up, ready to go to work in the factory. As soon as he opened the door, he saw Huairu washing the pots and pans of the Jia family at the common faucet. In the winter of these 49 cities, the water in the faucet is as cold as bone marrow, but Huairu, this woman, can just wash there every day. With this spirit of hard work, who can those little fairies born in the 1990s and 2000s achieve it? In his heart, he gave a thumbs up to Huairu for her ability to endure hardships. Silly Zhu coldly turned his face and took a basin to fetch cold water, preparing to bring it back to the house and wash himself with the hot water on the stove. And just as Silly Zhu was receiving water from another faucet, Huairu began to cough lightly, with a weak and sickly appearance on Lin's face. Just like Huairu's pitiful appearance now, in the previous life, it would definitely arouse the foolish pillar's desire to protect and care for her. But now, are you foolish pillars? The only thing in my mind was the heartless feeling of Huairu when he was kicked out by Bang Gung on that snowy night. So now facing Huairu coughing there, pretending to be weak, Silly Zhu didn't even look at him. As the water in the basin was half full, he turned off the faucet and left. Silly Zhu walked calmly, but what Silly Zhu didn't know was that he was facing his departing figure. Huairu's cough immediately cleared up, but her eye disease immediately recurred. After busy with personal hygiene, Silly Zhu took off the locks on 2 cabinets at home. Then he went out and locked the door of his own house and the door of his sister Rainwater's house. Silly Pillar locks the door, who is guarding against it. Everyone knows it well. So after seeing Silly Pillar lock the door, without even looking at her, he strode out of the yard. Huairu, that's a hate. I secretly swore in my heart, Silly Pillar, wait for me. I insist that you drink my foot wash for a lifetime. In the morning, the routine was not successful, so Huairu could only muster up her spirits and go to work in the factory. Today in the workshop, Huairu still allocated half of her work to a few lecherous people, offering a few intimate benefits. Then she stood there staring at the clock on the wall, watching time grind by. After seeing that the time is only a dozen minutes away from the lunch break, she immediately resumed her routine and told her group leader that she needed to use the restroom. Then she went to get her lunchbox and rushed to the cafeteria of the steel rolling mill where Chef Silly Zhu worked. This is also an old habit that Huairu has developed over 3 years ago. Due to the indulgence of silly pillars in the past, Huairu was able to offer 2 servings of food each time with 1 serving of food. When she catches up with the factory to improve the food, she can still beat more meat. Of course, if these are seen by other workers, then there will be a lot of trouble. So every time Huairu steps on the button, the bell for her lunch break rings in the factory, and before other workers leave the workshop, she runs to fetch the food. Today, the same goes for Huairu, holding 2 lunch boxes and twisting big fat, quickly walked to the cafeteria. Entering the cafeteria, Huairu opened her lunch box as she walked. She rushed to Lu Lan, who was busy at the window, and asked, "Lu Lan, what dishes are in the cafeteria today? Do you have any meat?" "Yes, today we have sliced meat and fried potatoes." When Huairu asked, Lu Lan calmly answered. Upon hearing Lu Lan say there was meat today, Huairu quickly leaned over to the window, handed her lunchbox in, and said, "Come on, Lu Lan, 1 portion of sliced meat, stir-fried potatoes, 1 portion of cabbage, 2 steamed buns." "I'm sorry, Master Qin. According to the factory's regulations, the cafeteria is open at noon on time. There are still 10 minutes left, so please wait outside for a while." Faced with Huairu's refusal to treat herself as an outsider, Lu Lan not only did not take Huairu's lunchbox. And speaking in that tone, it's called a matter of business. Upon seeing Lu Lan like this, Huairu immediately said anxiously, "Lu Lan, what's wrong with you? I'm your Qin sister." "What kind of sister is not sister?" "Huairu, your surname is Qin, my surname is Lu, and I, Lu Lan, can't stand up to you as a sister." Lu Lan, what's wrong with you? Why are you speaking so aggressively today?" Lu Lan, please don't leave." Seeing Huairu entangled endlessly, Lu Lan was too lazy to answer her, so she left. Seeing Lu Lan leave and ignoring her, Huairu immediately yelled at Ma Hua next to her at Siheyuan www.zhaoshuiyuan.com, Ma Hua, can you help me beat up the vegetables? This worker master, who are you? Don't randomly identify relatives. Lying trough. Silly Zhu is his Huairu's licking dog, while Ma Hua has always been Silly Zhu's licking dog. So in terms of their relationship, Huairu is the master of Ma Hua. Before, how could Ma Hua dare to talk to Huairu like this? Lu Lan just didn't bird her, and now even Ma Hua dares to attack her. Suddenly, Huairu realized that it must be the foolish pillar who spoke up. Otherwise, even if Lu Lan dared to show her Huairu's face, Ma Hua would definitely not dare. At this moment, Huairu felt the seriousness of the problem. After all, Silly Zhu even greeted the people around him. The determination of Silly Zhu to break ties with Huairu is absolutely huge. This understanding of Huairu was soon confirmed in a while of cooking. Although Huairu left the window where Lu Lan and Ma Hua were in charge and went to another window to cook, her lunchbox didn't even have a normal portion, let alone compared to before. And after Huairu raised objections about the portion size of this dish, she pulled her face and let her know. If she had any objections, she would write them down in the opinion book. Now hurry up and get out of here, don't affect the people queuing up for dinner. The relationship between Huairu and Silly Zhu is well known throughout the steel rolling mill, let alone the cafeteria where Silly Zhu works. They were aware of her relationship with Silly Zhu, and used to treat her favorably, but today it's all like this. Even if Qin Huairu is foolish, she knows that this must be a foolish pillar speaking. I can't believe it, I can't believe it. I can't believe how determined Silly Zhu is to break off with her this time. So big that even the title of Empress Dowager of Qin Huairu restaurant has been taken back.